What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to Blazers Uprise Live. We got a pretty chill show for today. We got two topics to talk about. One is the finals. We've been covering the finals, and there was a fantastic Game 5 in which the Milwaukee Bucks won. We'll break that down a little bit, talk about if we think the Bucks can pull out this series, and we'll also take your questions. A lot of people want us to talk about the Dame situation that happened Friday morning with the Dame's going to request a trade from Henry Abbott that was reported, and then Dame rebuking that in the interview, the Team USA interview. So we'll take your questions on that. I'm not really going into that really with much of a plan of what to talk about. I figured for that part of things, we will literally just let you guys guide that conversation. So other than that, hopefully, if you watched the mailbag that I dropped a couple days ago in the mock draft this morning, hopefully you enjoyed those and were entertained. Eric, how is the what's today? Monday? Is today a Monday? It's a Monday. How was the Monday, man?
Oh, it wasn't too bad. Yeah, nothing special. Just worked and hung out with the fam.
Yep. Solid Monday for me as well. You guys want us to talk about the Dame thing or the finals first? Which one? We will let you guys decide. This is a democracy here, and we will let you guys choose. Hello to Eric's mom. What's up, Danny? What's up? I was just talking to Jared, so I'm not going to say what's up to him, but everybody's... we got 3 finals, 4 finals. All right, seems like people want us to talk about the NBA Finals first. It's slight majority there. So, the NBA Finals stand at a 3-2 lead for the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks have won 3 games in a row. They're going to try and do what the Dallas Mavericks did in 2006, which is lose the first 2 games and win the last 4 to win the finals. That was the first final series I really watched, and it made me fall in love with basketball watching that final series. So they're trying to, do the same thing. They're trying to win 4 games after losing the first 2 on the road. The Bucks get the win they needed in Game 5, which was in Phoenix, in what was a phenomenal game. We've had back-to-back games, Eric, that were just absolutely phenomenal. Game 4 was extremely entertaining, extremely close. Game 5, early on, looked like the Suns might run away with it. They were up 32-16, and then the Bucks clawed back in the second quarter. They were able to push out a lead in the second half and were able to hold on. They almost gave things up. Devin Booker had a chance to put the Suns ahead. They were down 1 in the final 20 seconds, but Jrue Holiday gets a big steal. Throws a lob to Giannis, even though the shot clock was off. It's an and one for Giannis. He misses the free throw. Back taps his miss to Middleton, who's able to knock down 1 of 2 free throws after he gets fouled, making it a 4-point game. So if you didn't watch that finals game, you missed out. If you did, you know what I'm talking about. It was a phenomenal game, and the Bucks were able to get the upset, come from behind, win on the road there in Phoenix. What are your thoughts about that game? What are your thoughts about that final play, the Jrue Holiday steal, and then lob to Giannis? I thought that was one of the best finals plays I've ever seen. I think if the Bucks win this finals, that's going to be the number 1 highlight. What were your thoughts?
Well, you're always taught in that situation to pull the ball out, right, and just try to run out the clock or get fouled and go to the free throw line. And you would think you'd want Jrue Holiday shooting the free throws in that situation. So when he threw the lob, I'm like, no way. and then Chris Paul stupidly fouls Giannis. If he would have just let him dunk it, they'd still only be down 1 possession. So they could have possibly tied it with a 3. I think they still ended up having a chance to do so. But, it's like... I don't know. It took a lot of balls to throw that pass.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was surprised he threw it because I thought he was.
It wasn't like Giannis was wide open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Giannis versus Chris Paul.
Right.
Because I couldn't really tell who that defender was. I'm watching the ball, and then I see Giannis streaking down. There was so much happening on that play, and Jrue Holiday being a vet point guard and a pretty solid free throw shooter, I'm like, oh, he's just going to back this out, even though Giannis was running. And then he threw it. I was shocked. But, it was the right decision. If that pass doesn't connect, maybe the Suns hit a buzzer beater and everybody's blaming Drew Holiday. So yeah, it took a lot of guts to throw that pass. That was just a phenomenal play because of the risk involved. Because, you know what I mean? There's something about plays in, big time moments, in March Madness or in the NBA playoffs. There's something about plays where it's like you take a shot or you make a pass that conventional wisdom would say you shouldn't decide to do, but then it works out. Like, I'm thinking back to like Northern Iowa against Kansas about a decade ago. Farouk Manesh. If you pay any attention to college basketball, you probably know that highlight. Him shooting the ball right off a steal in a situation where he probably should have held. But he knocked down that three to put Northern Iowa up 4. Shout out to you if you know what play I'm talking about. But like plays like that, there's something a little more special about it when it's like, oh, he shouldn't throw that pass, but it ends up in a alley-oop dunk 3-point play for Giannis.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, with Northern Iowa, I mean, you kind of have to take risks if you want to upset one of the best teams in the country, right? But in that situation, it's like the finals are on the line. These are two great teams. Like you mentioned several times, they're very evenly matched. So if he throws that pass away or something and they end up losing the game, he's like a goat or he's like getting all the blame today instead of being the hero or the goat.
Yep. So I don't know if he did throw that away. Like, he got the stop and the steal in the first place. Right. So it would have been interesting to see the reaction if they ended up losing after he made that play. Like, like he got the steal in the first place. So I don't know how hard people could have been on him, especially since he was phenomenal. Drew Holiday, after going 4 for 20 in Game 4, I believe was 12 for 20 in Game 5. At one point, he was 11 for 14. He was lights out. He was the reason they were able to come back and build a little bit of a lead there in the second half. He was phenomenal for them. They had all 3 of their big 3 step up compared to Chris Paul, who stat-wise looked solid, but just was very loose with the ball, wasn't really commanding the offense too well, wasn't playing good defensively. I felt like the Bucks' big 3 outplayed them, due in part to Drew Holiday. So to cap it off with that pass was just a great moment, and it's why I've wanted a close series for moments like that.
Yeah, I almost want... I didn't really care who won Game 5, but now I want the opposite team, so I want the Suns to win Game 6, so... We have a Game 7. A Game 7 with these two teams would just be awesome, I think.
Who do you think wins Game 6? In chat, let me know in chat. Who do you guys think wins Game 6?
I think the Bucks are going to win now. I just think they have all the momentum. And I just feel like it's... I wouldn't say like the Suns are doomed or anything, because they can certainly still win this series, but... I just feel like all the wind's been taken out of their sails and they're kind of deflated now, and they gave it everything they had that last game. And I don't know if they're going to have enough to overcome that. And confidence-wise, I'm just not sure where their head is at.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. That's the thing. When you have a team like the Suns, they're going to be playing desperate. They're going to be, you know what I mean? They're going to be giving everything they got. Like, they've played well as underdogs this year, when people have kind of counted them out. Chris Paul, I mean, it's likely he never gets another chance at a championship. You know what I mean? So this is Chris Paul's... He'll still have a great legacy even if he doesn't win, but it's kind of like his legacy is on the line with this game. It's now or never for Chris Paul to step up. It's just like the Bucks have a couple guys. I mean, Drew Holiday was 4 for 20 in Game 4. If he struggles to shoot the ball and Chris Middleton will disappear occasionally, I mean, I could see the Suns easily winning this game. I'm pretty much on the fence with this one. I think the Bucks end up winning the series. Obviously, they're up 3-2, but I could easily see this going 7. I don't know, man. Like, I was on the fence after Game 4 as to who was going to win this series. And normally I'm like the first one to just toss out a bold prediction or a bold statement. It's just hard, man. It's just hard. I got to take Bucks because it's a closeout Game 6 on the road and they do have the momentum. But I'm as on the fence as I can be about this game.
And speaking of Chris Paul's legacy, what a dumb question Booker was asked. Like, why do you
Oh
ask him?
my goodness.
How do you ask him if he's frustrated for Chris? Like, no crap. He's frustrated for the whole team and himself too. Like, it's like, oh, he only wants to win because of Chris or something. Like, it makes no sense to ask that question.
What's funny is I was watching a compilation about the dumbest NBA media questions to players, like the day before. And then I saw that question. I'm like, yeah, that belongs right in that compilation.
As Sherman mentions, why do you yell when you dunk on that list?
Should be in there. Also, the Shaq question about would you suck the venom or something. I mean, that one's nobody's ever gonna outdo that question. Cause that, oh my goodness, that's a question that like Fentress would be proud of. But yeah, so that Devin Booker responded about as well as you could expect him to. Next question, please. Like,
yeah, I was surprised he said it that calmly, but I would be a little frustrated. I'd be like, dude, like we all want to win. Like, not just for Chris. I mean, I'd be happy if he got his ring and cemented his legacy, but like I'm trying to win a championship too. Like, this is my legacy as well. Like, that's just a weird question to ask someone else. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So,
and then there's also this narrative that Devin Booker's style can't win a championship or something.
I saw somebody say he can't be the best player on a contending team.
It's like
you can make the argument he's been the best player for them, and they're in the finals in a game 6. Like,
and
how
the game
can you
was
say
tied
that?
with like a minute left. It's not like they got blown out or something, and he had a horrible game or something. Like they were right there. The ball, like if Drew Holiday doesn't strip him on that one play, and he shoots the ball and makes it or something, like they win the game.
And the narrative then would be Devin Booker is carrying them to a championship.
Right, exactly. It's just so
but all
dumb
because
how a
of
close
one
game
singular
falls.
play, the narrative is completely, drastically different for some people. I hate people that talk about the game that way.
It's just the media is driving me crazy right now. All these narratives, all these like fake sources, and I don't know.
It's
Just
getting worse and worse and worse, man.
They just act like it's so hot takey too. It's like you can't just think logically. Like, no, I mean Devin Booker is showing that he can lead a team, and he is certainly capable of it. Yeah, it's one game does not change that, and the series isn't over. The Suns could still be the championship, and then you're going to look really dumb when a few days earlier you were saying all that stuff.
See, I feel like Blazers media isn't bad because they're hot takey. It's a different sort of,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've talked in depth about it. So that's the thing is I will be critical of Blazers media. I mean, you have 1080 the Fan tweeting out the Trailblazers might trade Dame and hit a full rebuild like the Oklahoma City Thunder. And it was literally just one of their producers writing a blog post where he just speculates as to how they would hit the reset button. But they tweeted it out like he had a source saying that the Blazers might, trade Dame and go after an OKC Thunder package of picks. You know what I mean? And I quote tweeted that. I said, why are you tweeting this out as if it's coming from a source? It's just clickbaity and it's just BS. Yeah. And it's from a guy I've never even heard of until this past week. Right? I had never even heard of him. So just add another one. He was a guy that I called out 3 days ago for saying GMs across the league say Neil Olshey is feeble-minded. And I was like, why are you making stuff up? Where did you get that from? Where's your proof? What? And he just could not back it up. And, it's just stuff like that. That's why Blazers media is bad. The national media, though, is just hot take. And don't get bought into national media with hot takes. There's a reason they have those hot takes. It's to get views and get attention. I've said this so many times. But it's like, I don't know. Like, I follow a few Suns fans, and I see Suns fans just hanging on to every word that a hot take media guy says about Devin Booker. He can't be the best player on a contending team. It's like, you guys are in the NBA Finals in Game 6. Why are you worrying about what some bozo says about Devin Booker not being able to be the best player on a contending team when he's literally carrying you guys in the finals right now? Like, it's just so blatantly dumb to have that narrative that I don't understand why people almost, like, give it credibility by paying attention to it as if it's worth paying attention to in the first place.
Yeah, that was from the main person was Matt Moore, who runs that Hardwood Paroxysm site or whatever, and yeah, I don't get it, man. This people are just trying to be. I don't know. It seems like too many people are trying to make a name for themselves or be part of the story versus just trying to like talk basketball or like analyze what's going on. They just want to like insert themselves into the conversation for some reason.
Yeah. Kyle Wilson says the reporter who said Dame had requested a trade later said in an interview that I'm always going to report what I hear. Our job isn't to verify what is true and what isn't. That's the case for him. That's not the case for Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a reason they get scoops is because they don't tweet out stuff that may or may not be true. So Henry Abbott, the guy who tweeted out that Dame was going to request a trade, he holds himself to the standard of, okay, whatever I hear, I'm just going to tweet as if it's truth, and it's not my job to make sure it's true. Okay? The professionals, like the legitimate professionals, those guys, you know, Woj and Shams, hold themselves to a professional standard. They don't just tweet out stuff that might be false as if it's true. So they have the respect of GMs. They have the respect of the league. They have the respect of NBA fans. You know, if Woj tweets something, it's true. If Shams tweets something, it's true. And that's how they're able to be... That's how they're able to build connections with NBA GMs, NBA front offices, and get scoops on things. I mean, Shams tweeted out that... He was the first one to tweet out that Donald Trump had COVID. You know what I mean? It's like these guys are so respected. That it's not just the NBA, you know? So... I mean, that was crazy. That was a fun day on Twitter. But, yeah, I mean, those two guys are, like, the only two guys I can say, like, I trust everything they tweet out.
Well, you can say that, too, because when they've been wrong, they've said, oh, my bad, I made a mistake. This is what actually happened, or this is who he decided not to sign here. I got some bad information, or whatever. And I
don't even remember them ever saying that,
well, like, there's been a few times where... You know, it's not even bad things. It's like Woj puts the wrong player in a trade or something, or says so-and-so. Like last year, I forgot which one of them did it, but one of them reported that Dwight Howard re-signed with the Lakers, remember? And then Dwight Howard was like, I don't know, fake news. And then he signs with Philadelphia. And, yeah, so, yeah, it's just like, at least you know if those guys are wrong, they're going to admit it. Where you have all these people like Tori, you have sources now, I guess, because I saw a tweet from you that ended up being correct, where you said Neil Olshey will not be fired in the next 48 hours, according to your.
Oh, would you look at that, man? Would you look at that, bro? And that's the thing. Like, since you bring that up, there's a lot of guys out there that like phrase things as a maybe when they're making bold statements, like.
So Neil Olshey's an out when it doesn't happen.
Neil Olshey's likelihood of being GM in 48 hours is less than it was a couple days ago. You know, they'll tweet stuff like that. I can completely make that. I can say the Blazers' odds for getting Kawhi Leonard are slightly higher this offseason than they were before Kawhi Leonard had knee surgery. Like, how can you prove I'm wrong? Like, I'm not saying anything if I say that. And then, you know, he resigns with the Clippers. I'll say, oh, it's just slightly higher. I never said he was going there. I mean, slightly higher, you know, that means a 5% chance instead of a 3% chance. Like,
or then just tell everyone that they can't read when they...
Yeah, you know, but if you question them, then it's like, yeah, I never said that. They get defensive and make it out like, oh, you're just misreading what I'm saying. A lot of people will say nothing. They'll say something to say essentially nothing. And that's what Sean Highkin did with that Olshey thing, saying his job security was 48. It was his job security was worse. And it was less likely to be GM in 48 hours or whatever he said. It's funny because Jason Quick came out and said, no, Vulcan is behind Olshey. Mm-hmm. And they don't believe Chauncey did it. Yeah. I believe... See, like, that's saying something definitive.
Yeah.
So, like, if that's the thing, is like if Olshey went and got fired the next day, like Quick would look really, really dumb, really, really bad. So he's, you know, there's no motive for him to say that unless he knows. That's how you can kind of weed out who to trust and who not to trust, is the people that say things definitively. So that was funny when Quick says that definitively, and it's like, yeah, I mean, he stole GM. Like, why would he still be GM if Vulcan didn't side with him on the Chauncey thing?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Chauncey wouldn't be coach, and if Olshey butted heads enough with the ownership group on Chauncey becoming coach, then Neil probably wouldn't be GM. Like, I don't understand how people can make up the narratives they do.
If they would have, if those reports were true, here's another thing where they claim they had sources, and there was this big feud between Jody and Neil, right? And now the narrative is, oh, Neil and Olshey must be like sleeping together or something if she hasn't fired him by now. I've heard that plenty of times. So like, it's gone from them feuding and then when they're wrong about that, because if they were feuding, why would she let him hire the coach? That makes no sense. They would have just fired him, and Olshey's just power hungry, like Trevin says. He's just getting all the power, and Jody is helpless to do anything about it, and he's just going to sign whoever coach. No, that's not the case. She can fire him and hire whoever she wanted as coach if that's what she wanted as Becky Hammon. So there's no truth to any of those rumors. Mm-hmm. The media is trying very hard to make it seem like Neil is this huge problem so that he gets fired. But as we'll talk about in a minute with Dame, I don't even think Dame thinks Neil is a problem. Otherwise, he would be gone too, because Dame, I mean, Dame controls a lot of what happens. So if he didn't like Neil Olshey and thought he was doing a terrible job and wanted him gone, he wouldn't be the GM right now, and he wouldn't have been able to hire Chauncey. And they likely hired Chauncey because Dame was partly involved and wanted him. So it's just funny to me that people think that like Neil's just taken over and he's put his foot down and says, I'm going to run this organization and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, there's plenty they could do about that if that was the case.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like Mike Richmond has basically said it's personal between Sean Highkin and Neil Olshey. Neil Olshey hasn't been the nicest to him, essentially, so Sean Highkin doesn't like him. Like, a fellow media member said it's basically personal for Sean Highkin. And then you got, the producer I talked about earlier, 1080 The Fan, who just makes it up that other GMs think Neil Olshey is a feeble-minded narcissist and they will not trade with him. It's like, quit taking your personal feelings towards Neil Olshey and trying to craft narratives that paint him in the worst light possible. It was, Vulcan is going over Neil's head to try and go get Eric Spoelstra so they could make Eric Spoelstra the GM and the coach. That's Jody putting her foot down and standing over Olshey. And then, Spoelstra staying in and Neil gets his guy in Chauncey. You know what I mean? It's just like, we have bounced around from so many different narratives. If you pay attention to the side of the fan base that absolutely loathes Neil Olshey, so much of it, and not all of it, by the way, key thing there, Eric, not all of it, but a lot of the criticism towards Neil Olshey is manufactured based on people not liking Neil Olshey. There's so many people that legitimately hate him. Like, it's unhealthy levels of hate. It's beyond our hatred of Stotts. Our hatred of Stotts was simply off his job performance.
Right,
we never made up, Stotts is a feeble-minded moron who other coaches don't respect. Like, you ever hear us talk like that? I mean,
we maybe said a few things out of frustration, but yeah.
Yeah, but like, for the most part, we broke down why we didn't like him, and we broke it down with legitimate substance, whereas you have so much just visceral, crazy stuff. Now it's like, the only way Olshey is still GM is because he's sleeping with Jody Allen. You know what I mean? Like, I'm somebody that likes to think logically and focus on the facts and focus on what's true and focus on what I can see, what I can know. There's a lot of people who hate Olshey that's not how they operate. So there's a lot of people and media members where it's a personal thing for them and they're acting off of that. I mean, Mike Richmond admitted that with Sean Highkin. Okay? There's a lot of things that you can criticize Olshey for, and they're legitimate gripes, legitimate arguments. Why don't we just stick to that? Because it's not like those people would be lacking any fuel anyways.
Right.
But instead, it's just a bunch of BS narratives that they chase. And then, so on Twitter, I will basically call that stuff out. If somebody says, I don't think he's done a good job surrounding talent around Dame, like, I don't really argue that stuff because, I mean,
I mean, it's
like part of me is,
and that you're fine to have that opinion.
Yeah, and like I don't know, I can see why somebody would have that opinion. You know, I mean, I think he's done a decent job the past couple of years, but like before that, I mean, he's definitely made some mistakes, and I've been hard on him too. But it's like if we call out any of the manufactured, crafted narratives, it's like all of a sudden we're pro Olshey, and we just wake up and just want to, you know, stand for Olshey, and we're making it out to be any and all criticism of Olshey. This is a quote, by the way. Essentially, we make it out that any and all criticism of Olshey is personal. I'm butchering this.
We're defending like the government versus the,
God,
the people.
What was the quote?
Know?
It's your favorite guy. It's your favorite guy, Goldner, man. He said that, and he was talking about us, and he didn't name names because he never names names. Yeah. I wish he would name names.
He tries to hide behind that.
Yeah, like just if you want to call us out, I'd have more respect if he just said, "Yeah, Blazers Uprise guys," or Tory and Eric. Like, if you're gonna call people out, say some names. I'll let you talk to me, Eric. I'm kind of ranting, but if you're gonna call people out, say some names. And you know, he basically was talking about us and probably talking about other people too, probably not just us, you know, and his reaction to this would be, oh, you guys always gotta make it about yourself. I never even said your guys' name. If you call people out, call them out by name, all right? But he essentially called us out and said, you know, not directly, but he essentially called us out and said that we are making it out as any criticism of Olshey by the media is because they have a personal axe to grind with him. That's just not true. That's such a misrepresentation. I call out the stuff that is manufactured. There's a lot of reasons you could criticize Olshey that isn't manufactured, and I won't even argue with you on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, I got blocked by Goldner again because he was basically saying that any media who says he has a source is believable, and you have to trust him that the source is. And that's like exactly what they're railing on Olshey about. Is like, trust me, dude. Like. Those kind of sources. And I'm like, literally anyone, media, non-media, any person can make up that they have a source and say, this is what my source is saying. And if you're in a position where you're a media member like Sean Highkin or whatever, you're going to have half the fan base believe whatever you say that your source says, right? Especially if it matches your opinion that Olshey sucks and you think he's horrible. So if all he has to do is say he has a source and Jody and Neil are feuding and Dame hates Neil or whatever, and then all of a sudden everyone's going to just assume that's fact. And my whole point all along has just been, this is all BS. It kind of reminds me of the LaMarcus Aldridge year where like people are saying like Olshey knew all along that Aldridge was going to leave at the end of that year. It's like Aldridge didn't even know what he was doing. That guy flip-flops his mind so many times, like, you know, and like Dame, if he's wavering at all, like he hasn't made a firm decision. So to anyone who says like Dame was about to request a trade on Friday and stuff like that, that's why I knew right when I heard that, I wasn't that worried because it's BS. I knew Dame hadn't made up his mind like while he's practicing for Team USA. He didn't just wake up and decide, you know what, I'm going to request a trade today and make everyone just every media conference or press conference during the Olympic basketball, they're gonna be asking me about it, and if I get traded during the Olympics, it's gonna be this big story. Like Dame doesn't want to make that about him. He wouldn't do that during the Olympics. It's just so dumb, and like people who like ran with it and think that that's actually from Dame, like that's just, you know, that's false. And I can say 100% that those are made up stories. It's BS. And it's someone trying to make names for themselves. It's someone trying to insert themselves into the story, like I said. And it just, everyone just buys it hook, line, and sinker because they want it to be true so bad that Dame is just so pissed off at Neil that you're going to have to fire him, right? And that's just not the case.
I mean, you had a lot of those people that, you know, right when that was tweeted out, I went back and kind of scrolled through Twitter a bit, and a lot of them were like, way to go, Olshey. You know, they just took it out. Instead of thinking it through, who's reporting this? Henry Abbott? Since when does he have a beat on Damian Lillard or the Portland Trail Blazers? Like, instead of just thinking things through logically, it immediately turned into, Olshey! Screw you, Olshey! You made Dame want to leave and now he wants to leave and yada, yada, yada. And then it's like, dude, do we not know who Damian Lillard is as a person anymore? I don't understand it, man. Like, come on. It's like, just calm down for a second. Quit thinking about how you can be mad at Olshey and think about what is actually happening. But it's not that. It's they get a chance, they will scream, yell, cry about Neil Olshey. It's just ridiculous. Like, just that's a perfect example, man. I mean, and here's a question: like, if Sean Highkin from a source hears that the front office is actually happy with Neil Olshey and yada yada yada, like, do you think he's going to report that?
Mm-mm.
Like, no. I mean, Jason
or
Quick
if he does,
reported
it'll
it.
be like, our front office is so stupid. I'm hearing that they're fine with Olshey and he's not gonna get fired. Like, this is just
It'll
a
be
travesty. You know?
this team needs to be sold. I mean, it's just it's just an angle on everything that always results in that, man. Like, I don't know. It's So what's funny, Eric? You remember? I was like, oh, I wonder if our fan base is going to be less divisive now that Stotts is gone.
Nope, it's more. Yeah. Well,
Oh.
so here's the bottom line, though. So there's a line between being a good person, being good with the media, and being a good GM. Like, the GM part is arguable, whether you think Neil has done an okay job, a terrible job, a good job, whatever. But the stuff that none of that stuff matters, in my opinion, in terms of getting trades done, signing free agents. I'd actually put money on this team in a better position to land free agents right now today than they were last offseason or any of the other years that Neil has been here, because people want to play with Chauncey, and we're assembling a staff with coaches that players are going to want to play for. They want to be a part of, and Dame's a good leader and all that stuff. I think this is the first time that we might actually see someone want to come here because of that stuff. Versus, like, no one wants to play with Stotts, and no offense to Becky Hammond, but there's not. If you're an NBA player, you're not going to be like, oh, I want to sign with Portland because they hired Becky Hammond. You know what I mean? It's like, no, they hired Chauncey. That's my guy. Like, I want to go play for him, you know? And then, like, we're talking about, you know, possibly could sign and trade for Kawhi and stuff like that. None of that stuff's even a 1% chance of happening if we sign anyone like Becky Hammond, you know? And that, once again, it's not taking anything away from her. It's just people make it seem like the whole entire NBA is against hiring Chauncey Billups, and everyone hates this hire, and Neil will never be able to sign a free agent or trade a player again because no one wants to deal with him, and they think he's an a-hole and all that stuff, which is probably true, but, like, that's not going to affect him to make moves. I mean, he made a trade last year with Masai Ujiri, who's everyone's, like, darling, best GM ever, right? So he made a trade with him last year. He didn't think he was too feeble to make a trade with, you know, and I thought it was a pretty fair trade for both sides. I don't think anyone got fleeced in that trade. But yeah, so Neil's absolutely he's handled this horribly, and I've said this several times. I feel like if he never has a press conference where it's not like he has to be defensive. It's always like, oh, we got swept out of the playoffs, or oh, we got we hired a questionable coach, you know, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I wish he would do, like, more availability, or just have a relationship with some of these people outside of his, you know, one or two players or reporters that he converses with. That's why I've said several times, like, it would be great to have him on a show like this, and maybe, you know, shows his personality a little bit or whatever, because I just feel like he does such a disservice to himself, the way he conducts himself during those press conferences, the way he's combative, the way he's seemingly a jerk to everyone about it, the way he wants everyone to believe what he's saying when some of the stuff is obviously not true and is, you know, being proven true later. So all that stuff, he digs his own grave with that, but don't get it twisted. That doesn't affect any of his abilities as a GM. That's just media relations and stuff like that. So he can piss off all the media he wants to. That doesn't affect how good of a job he's going to do or not do this summer, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Blazers Twitter needs to realize that not the entire NBA is paying attention to it. They don't have players from across the league paying attention to Blazers Twitter like, wow, their fans are really mad. This is a meltdown. No, their organization's falling apart. No, they're not paying any attention to that. Sure, you might have seen the Chris Haynes tweet, but like if Dame is like, come here and play with me and Chauncey in Portland. I want to be here in Portland. We just need another piece to get us over the hump. We think you can be that piece. You think that free agent is going to sit there and be like, you know what? I would sign with you guys, but Chauncey in 1997 has that allegation, and all these fans are super frustrated, and the media thinks your GM is bad, so he must be. So I'm not going to sign with you guys for that reason. You think that's how things work?
If someone did do that, that's totally their right. In terms of everything I've seen with players and other front offices and stuff, like, we just saw the Clippers hired him last year. The Cleveland Cavaliers were set to make him their president of basketball operations and sign him to a 5-year contract to, be their person in charge of personnel and stuff.
Chauncey
he's
has
well
respect.
respected around the league in terms of basketball stuff. And once again, we're not excusing anything or being apologists for anything that happened, but he absolutely is a guy that commands respect around in the league through players and other front offices. And as Sherman points out, Scott Brooks, you can say what you want about his coaching style or whatever, but he's also a guy that a lot of star players in this league have played for and respect a lot as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. It's like players respect Chauncey Billups more than they would respect Becky Hammon. Like, I'm sorry, that's just the truth. The thing is, if you say that,
right,
you got a mob of people like, oh, you're a POS.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole response from, a side of Blazers Twitter. But it's like, I mean, just pay attention. Like, do people really argue that players respect Becky more than Chauncey? Like a guy who's won an NBA championship, a guy who's been in the NBA for multiple years. Like, that type of guy gets respect. Somebody who's been in their position are bound to get more respect from NBA players. I'm not saying that should stop Becky Hammon from being a head coach. Sure, like, she deserves a chance at some point. See what she can do.
She should have got a chance.
And it's not like
openings this year.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that players would disrespect her. See, that's the thing. Is like, oh, if you say they respect Chauncey more, that means they don't respect Becky. No, I'm sure players respect Becky too. Dame respects Becky. I'm not saying players don't respect Becky. I'm just saying Chauncey Billups is one of the more respected people in the association. Like, he's extremely respected. So, I don't know. Like, as far as that whole side of things, like, it's not like people are not going to come here because of Chauncey. If anything, he gives us a chance to maybe do a little bit more.
You know what I equate it to? Is the David Vanderpool situation. Because when he gets passed over for the Minnesota job, Dame goes on Twitter, David Vanderpool deserves a head coaching job, blah, blah, blah. He should have gotten that job or whatever. He said comments in the past that Becky Hammon deserves a shot at a coaching job eventually, as well. But did he mention either of those guys when he had his first chance to name who he wanted as coach? No, he mentions Jason Kidd and Chauncey Billups, right? And he said he regrets naming those two. But that goes to show you, like, they like those guys. They want them. Vanderpool is a good friend of Dame. I'm sure he would have been okay if he was the coach or named the coach of the Blazers. But the fact that he wasn't advocating for him specifically to come back and be the Blazers coach told me all I needed to know, that those guys are super respected, or guy and girl people. Those are both super respected people. Everyone thinks they deserve a shot at a head coaching job, just not necessarily for us or them, So
yeah,
and that's not me talking. This is that's directly from Dame. He could have vouched for either one of those guys, and they probably would be the coach right now if he would have mentioned either of their names instead of Billups or Kidd. And I think those two should be coaches eventually. I just don't think this situation, if you were trying to win with Dame, and keep him around and all that stuff. I just don't think either of those two were the right coach for this job. And unfortunately, you can't really say that without getting canceled, I guess, now. But in terms of straight basketball, I don't think the Blazers could do a better job than what they're doing assembling a staff right now.
Yeah. And kind of going back to your point, or to the conversation we had about everybody wanted to be outraged at Neil Olshey, we brought in a female assistant coach who played at the University of Oregon.
Token hire.
And everybody's calling it a PR move. Like, we bring in a female head coach and people are downplaying her, potential as a coach, as an assistant coach, her accomplishments. She was a D1 assistant at the University of Maine. Not necessarily a super high profile job. It's not necessarily a good university, but it's not like we're bringing her in to be the head coach or the lead assistant. Like, you have a number of assistants on a coaching staff. So we bring in a female coach, and you have these people who are saying, oh, you just had to hire Becky Hammon. Now all of a sudden they're downplaying us hiring a female assistant coach because she's a female. Like, people are saying it's a PR move. Here's my question to all those people. Do they seriously think that Neil Olshey believes that all he has to do to fix the backlash that they're giving him, all he has to do is hire Anisha Curry as an assistant coach? Really? Do they really think that's all? Do they really think that he believes that's all he has to do to fix the relations with the public and all the people that hate him and all the media that can't stand him? Not at all.
And on top of that, there's hundreds of women who are more higher profile, bigger names out there, more that people have heard of, either through the WNBA game or through, college basketball, women's coaching, whatever, former players. I mean, I know she was a former player and she has some ties to the state. So, like, some people in Oregon probably know her better than nationally. But, like, they would have hired, like, the biggest name possible. It would have been for show. You don't hire a coach like that who's an assistant coach on Maine because you're doing a PR move. You hire her because you found her and you felt like she could be utilized as a really good coach. So you hire that, like Kyle Wilson says, like, hire Sue Bird or someone. Like, I have no idea if she'd be a good coach or not, Sue Bird. She might be a fantastic coach. But, like, that's the kind of person you would hire if you just wanted, like, the biggest name possible out there, like Elisa Leslie, as Alex Wolf points out. Someone like that. You just hire, like, whatever the best name you can find. But no, they did their homework. This girl, I've been watching some videos thanks to Snaggy and Wheezy and those guys on Twitter. They've been posting a lot of coach, I forgot what they're called, like coaching clinics and stuff where a bunch of coaches get together and discuss things. And Snaggy actually had me watch this YouTube clip of her. She was talking about what she thinks is wrong with like youth development and why when you see them at the higher levels, like college basketball, and she couldn't believe why like so many players don't know how to cut or don't know how to move off the ball or don't know how to like do things with the ball and stuff. And she said it's because pick and roll is taught too early. So when you have a pick and roll, you always have the best player with the ball and you have the biggest guy come and set a screen, right? And it's always like your best big and your best ball handler, right? And the other guys, what do? And this is like when they first start out, right? They're just standing in the corners watching this happen, right? And so they never learn anything. They're just standing watching, and whether they win or lose is all dependent on those two players who are their best players doing well. And if they do well on those pick and rolls and can score a lot, occasionally they'll get kicked out for an open three or whatever, but that doesn't teach you how to play basketball. So all these players grow up and half of them just stand there watching around. They might be good at cutting or running a different offense, but they're basically just standing there and watching and hoping that their best player scores the ball or passes to them or whatever. And that's not good to teach basketball. So she was saying if she was coaching youth, if you're under the age of 15, she wouldn't let her teams run a pick and roll because she would want a motion offense with lots of movement and cuts and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just sitting here thinking like, oh my gosh, this is like my ears are like sparking up. Like this is exactly like how I would view things if I was a coach. And just the way she articulated that was just so great in my mind. And I tried to post a clip on Twitter, but for some reason it wouldn't let me post it. But it's just, I feel like just listening to her talk for those few minutes, it was just so enlightening. And she feels like she has such a good grasp on what's needed to succeed at any level, let alone the NBA or youth level or whatever. So yeah, it's just like, I'm actually really excited about the hire. I think they did their homework and found someone who is going to be a rising star in the coaching game for years to come. And I like the Scott Brooks hire. He's just a solid guy who's been around the league. And then Roy Rogers, we finally have a big man coach who knows a little bit about defense and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I just feel like this staff is incredibly well put together right now. It's not done yet, and I'm really excited about it from a basketball perspective.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, coaching staff-wise, like, honestly, like, I wasn't too thrilled about Scott Brooks, but as an assistant, I mean, cool. You know, I mean, players respect him, but could end up being a really good assistant for us, and we needed a guy with head coaching experience under a first-time head coach, in my opinion. So, don't really have any problems with it. And then Roy Rogers, Anisha Curry, I don't know much about her, but you saying that has me liking the hire, you know what I mean? Because it's like that going into this coaching search, I wanted us to hire a coach with a certain set of philosophies, you know, not just the sparkly name, you know, right. a Becky Hammond, or you know, not just hire somebody because they've had some success in the NBA before, you know, a Mike D'Antoni or whatever. I wanted us to hire a guy that can hold players accountable, can have a good relation with players, can get us running a motion offense with more ball movement, more player movement, teach players how to cut, teach players how to play off the ball, and then is able to coach defense and able to coach different defensive schemes and able to coach technique things. That's what I wanted. So that's the thing, is like I feel like we're putting together a coaching staff that kind of abides by a lot of that stuff. So I'm happy with it. Like, sure, the Chauncey allegation thing, like, I wish that wasn't a thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I don't know for sure either way, like, but since I don't know, I'm not gonna focus on it because I don't know. You know, and sure, Olshey had a couple missteps in how he handled that, so I understand people being annoyed with how he handled it a bit, but it's like beyond that, I don't see anything to be too mad about right now, at least on my end. So that's why it's like, I don't know, that's why I feel like a lot of it is an over-exaggeration. I am higher on the roster than other people are, so that, of course, plays a part in it, but it's much more than that for other people, it seems like to me. And Olshey's in a position where he has more pressure on him than ever to swing for a big move. So it's like everybody's like, oh, I can't stand him. He's never wanted to trade CJ. Well, I can guarantee you he's looking to trade CJ this offseason at this point. I can guarantee you that. So it's like, sure, we can be frustrated about, oh, he hasn't traded CJ. He hasn't traded CJ. Doesn't everybody just want him to try and put together the best roster possible and be willing to trade CJ if that's the case, if that's what makes it happen? Isn't that what we want? Well, that's the mode he's going to be in this offseason. So I'm not sitting here saying we should have him fired because, like, I feel like what everybody wants, he is going to be operating along the same thought process as what everybody wants him to operate under. So I don't understand I don't understand why people are so mad. I can understand it for a couple different reasons, a couple different things, but it's like he can wake up and he can go down to a breakfast place in Portland and people would be pissed at the breakfast place he choose. They'd be pissed at how he parked his car. They'd be pissed if he got valet. They'd be pissed that he's even in Portland in the first place. So, yeah.
Well, people don't want to hear this, but it might be better to not trade CJ until into the season next year too. But
yeah, I said it on my
he'll get
mailbag.
absolutely crushed for that. Yeah, and I agree with what you said. Yeah,
CJ could look phenomenal under Chauncey.
yeah.
CJ could look phenomenal, and he could, like, I feel like CJ would be willing to buy into a system more predicated on ball and player movement and wouldn't pound the ball as much. I felt like some of the times he over dribbled where people would get pissed off at him for it. I feel like a lot of those times he was doing it out of necessity because the offense was super stagnant and everybody's just standing around waiting for somebody to make something happen. So I feel like CJ could look great under Chauncey. I would like to trade him for Pascal Siakam or a similar type of player this offseason. Like, I'm on board with that. The problem is there might not be that player available.
Yeah.
So, if not, I mean, and maybe Dame's not too happy with it, but it's like, it sounds like Dame just wants the front office to be doing everything in his power to put together the best roster around him as possible. So it's like, if you keep Dame in the loop and you try everything, and there's nothing out there worthwhile, and you bring him back, like, I'm not sure Dame's going to be too pissed off with that. And if CJ looks great under Chauncey and there might be a player available at the deadline that's not available now that we didn't expect to be available, that's the perfect CJ trade target that we're able to go and get. And CJ has more value.
Maybe Toronto doesn't trade VanVleet and Siakam, and then they go into next season and, Siakam's going to miss the first couple months. Maybe they're, out of the playoff picture or 10 games back or something, and decide to blow it up midseason instead of when that earlier this offseason they weren't willing to do that. So absolutely, I agree that it doesn't mean that he's unwilling to trade him. It just means, because honestly, we'd be trading him at one of his lowest values because he had a terrible playoff. So I never like to trade players when their value is at their lowest. But if they get a good deal for him, absolutely pull the trigger in my mind. But if they just run it back this year, I'm not saying I want that. I'm not saying, part of me does, just to like prove once and for all like what the difference in coaching versus personnel is and how a lot of people downplay that. But bottom line is, sitting here right now, we have a better chance, in my opinion, even if we run it back next year, than we did this year with Stotts and that coaching staff.
Absolutely.
I feel like we have it. And the thing about like Rodgers and Curry especially, those two, they're everything they have said and stand for in their past coaching philosophies and things like that mesh perfectly with what Chauncey said in his press conference, what he wants to accomplish. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of synergy between those three in particular, just getting to that point where if they're not if they do go a lot of ISO heavy or pick and roll heavy and aren't moving the ball, or they have games where we're averaging 17 assists for 10 games in a row or something like Stotts often did, I feel like those three are going to keep each other in check and point it out like, look, we're not moving the ball at all. Like, what's going on? We thought we were going to move the ball and do all these things differently on offense. Why are we not doing that? And I feel like with Stotts' crew last year, there was just too much, okay, yes, Mr. Stotts, yes, let's just do that. Like everyone just agreed with him and they were all yes men for what he wanted to do. And no one ever challenged him on why he wasn't changing his defense when it's 29th ranked and all that kind of stuff. So I just feel like right away we will be better next season, even if we run it back. I'm not saying we should run it back or anything like that. But yeah, we have a lot of people disagreeing with that today on Twitter as well.
Yep. So if you had to guess, what do you think we do this offseason? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. Take some time to think about it if you need to. But, like, just if you had to guess as to whether we trade CJ, what we trade him for, like what our offseason looks like, what would your best guess be?
All right. So I'm going to preface this by talking a little bit about the Dame situation because it'll lead into what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So people think that Dame hates Neil and he thinks he's done a terrible job with the roster, blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
But when Dame said that the roster wasn't good enough, right before that, he was just talking about all the other teams. Like, I don't think he mentioned them specifically, but I'm pretty sure he was referring or implying like a New York and Atlanta who changed their coaches. Monty Williams goes into Phoenix and in 3 years has them in the finals, those kind of situations I think he was referring to, because he did start to talk about like a coach can make a difference. We've obviously seen that. And then he mentions the roster needing to improve. But I don't have any sources like this. I'm not saying this is 100% truthful, so don't say like Eric said that he was right about this or whatever. But in my mind, all these people are saying Dame would never let Stotts be fired, right? Mm-hmm. And Dame didn't let Stotts get fired in 2018 when he should have been fired after the Pelican series, right?
Yep.
And from all reports, Olshey wanted to fire Stotts then. Dame went to Paul Allen and said, hey, I know you're about to fire him, but I'm going to vouch for him. I put it on me. Please keep him around. So they keep him around. Next year, we go to the Western Conference Finals. You can't really fire him after that season. Next season, we have the injuries. Can't really fire him. You have the injury excuse, whatever. I mean, you could have. But, like, in Dame's mind, you couldn't. But then this year, people are saying, oh, Dame's attitude is different this year. Well, he realized that Stotts was crap as coach. Like, he realized that Stotts was not a good coach. And it was apparent. If he hadn't realized it during the season, during the Nuggets series, he absolutely realized it. And he was totally fine with that. And no, he didn't have a problem with the coach being fired or anything like that, right?
Yep.
And then, so people will blame, like, the Billups hiring on him, but that was, Dame wanted Billups too. It's not like Dame is mad that we hired Billups. In my mind, he's mad that he can't be happy that we hired Billups, right? Hey, bud.
Yeah.
All right. That was creepy. Anyways, so yeah, like I believe this is Dame being more mad that he can't be happy that they hired a good coach, and they can't be happy. He can't be happy or say anything positive like, yeah, Olshey got the guy I wanted, because then he looks like an anti-feminist and a rape apologist, right? Like anyone who says that does right now. Yeah. And that on top of that, so all those people say that that's true, right? That Dame vouched for Stotts, right? That's pretty much known that happened, and that he would have been mad if we fired Stotts anytime before this offseason, right?
Yeah.
But those same people then also think CJ should have been traded years ago or whatever. Like Dame didn't want CJ on his team. And like earlier this season when Aaron Fentress mentions how Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal are a better backcourt, and Dame's like, so you think they're a better backcourt than me and CJ? And like it gives the look, and all that kind of stuff. Like, Dame didn't want CJ traded before this offseason, so there's no way Olshey, that's not on Olshey. That's not on him. I don't care what anyone says. He had to make Dame happy. If Dame wants to have this backcourt with him and CJ and thinks it's good enough to win, up until this point, Dame has thought that. Now, the reason why Dame is acting different this summer is because he realized that maybe CJ just isn't the right fit with him. As much as he likes him, he wants to try it maybe with a different player, right? So this is the reason why he's unhappy and saying, I want the roster to be better, is because for the first time, he would not get in the way or say, because we don't know how many times has Stotts in the past, or not Stotts, Olshey gone to Dame and said, hey, I have this trade offer for CJ, like for Paul George in 2017. Let's just take that. It was widely rumored that Olshey told Indiana they could have our 3 first-round picks and anyone on the roster not named Dame, CJ, or Nurk at the time. And CJ was coming off his best season as a pro, so he had immense value there. So let's say the Pacers were like, we will do it for CJ straight up or whatever, or CJ in one of your picks or whatever, and we could have kept that. I'm sure Olshey ran that by Dame, and he was probably like, no, man, I'm rolling with CJ. I don't want Paul George for that if we have to give up CJ in that trade. And so, like I was saying, this is all speculation, but it matches everything that's happened in this point. So, and this is the reason why Olshey is still the GM, because Dame knows that Olshey has done what he's wanted this whole time. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem with all these people who think that it's Olshey's fault that Dame wants to leave. And it's not. If Olshey does not do a good job, now that Dame will allow him to do moves to make the team better, if he makes the team worse or trades CJ for lesser pieces and it puts it in that place. But then Dame will want Olshey gone and want someone else. But Dame is not at that point yet. So anyone who's saying that he wants to leave because of Olshey or because of the roster being crap has to put some of that on Dame for wanting the roster to be that way. He's been upset when we traded guys like Plumlee and Tim Frazier and stuff like that, when those trades have worked out for us in the past. So it just it drives me crazy that this has been turned into a Dame versus Olshey like battle or something like that, when they've worked in synergy together this whole time. And the other thing is too, Dame has been there with Olshey the last 2 free agencies. So he has gotten a firsthand look on what has happened during free agency, who Olshey has gone after, what kind of trades are on the table, what kind of players they're targeting. Quick has even said that in several trades, like the Rocco trade this summer. So what Olshey will do is give Lillard a list and say, hey, these are the 5 guys I'm looking to trade for. What of these guys would you want the most or whatever? And Dame's like, I want this guy and this guy or whatever. And then Olshey goes and tries to get that guy. And that's how they got Rocco, is because he was one of the guys that Dame identified as being a good one. And I'm guessing Dame probably said that about Aaron Gordon too, and that's why we initially went after him as well or whatever. Yeah, you say what you want about that. But Dame was there when Cantor got offered the contract and said he had 6 minutes to decide, and Dame was like, no, I was there, you had 45 minutes or whatever, and you knew how much money we could offer you. And then Dame said last offseason he was disappointed with how free agency turned out or whatever, but he specifically said Neil did all he could. Neil tried his butt off to work on moves and stuff like that. It just, nothing better worked out or whatever. And that might be a kind of a slight on Derek Jones or whatever, but I'm assuming they were targeting a higher free agency or had a trade that they were trying to work on or something that didn't work out. But Dame's been there, man. It's like he wouldn't be a part of all those processes and save Stott's job and not wanted CJ traded because he's his buddy and all that kind of stuff, and then be mad at Olshey for not having a good team around him for 9 years or whatever. Like that doesn't it doesn't make sense. And that's why I always say, if you just take a step back and think about all these things logically, it doesn't make sense. This narrative that Olshey is the problem or whatever. Yes, he is the problem. He needs to do better as a GM. This team needs to get better. All that kind of stuff. I agree with you. But to say that the roster, like, Olshey's just never put someone better than CJ around Dame, well, that's also partly because Dame hasn't wanted to roll with anyone other than CJ. He's wanted CJ to be a second guy, best team player on the team and all that kind of stuff. And when we did have a guy who was challenging CJ in Nurkic a few years ago for being the best or the second best player on the team, he gets hurt and then misses, almost all the playoffs and then a whole season or whatever. And that kind of messes everything up. And we haven't really been the same since, but it's just crazy to me that people want to put that all on Olshey, even though that's his job. I'm not saying that he gets any pass or excuse, and he handles everything terribly, and he doesn't talk to the media well, all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean he doesn't know what he's doing and can't do a good job if he's given the opportunity to explore CJ trades from Dame himself.
Yeah. So, okay. That's a really good monologue. Back to kind of the question, though.
Okay,
back to the question. Yeah, because you said I was going to lead into it. Yeah.
Okay. So, this is why, like, Alex Wolf said earlier in chat, like, so here's what happens is Dame's just different this offseason, though. You can't deny that, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, in terms of trading CJ, I think he would be okay with it. I think he could recognize that for CJ's career, it might be better if he's on a team where he's not, playing alongside Dame, or he gets to run the offense or do something where he's the main ball handler. And for Dame, it might be better if he just has someone different position or someone not quite as similar to him as his running mate. And that's totally okay. It's not a slight on CJ or anything like that. I think he's willing to trade him. And because of that, I think they're, for the first time, I've never thought they would trade CJ until this offseason. I think it's definitely a possibility. Now, the problem becomes, like you mentioned, can they get anything for him? Can they get the right pieces for him? Can they get a player that makes sense for them to do so? And will Dame be happy if CJ's back on the team next year? Because if it's like the Danny Meringue, oh, we have to get rid of CJ at all costs type of thing, if that's how Dame's telling it or phrasing it to Olshey, it's like, look, I just want someone different, like do what you can or whatever, then I guess Olshey has to trade him for whatever the best package is, but I don't see Dame phrasing it that way. So there is a chance that CJ could be. So my guess is it's somewhere in the 60% he's traded, 40% he's not.
Okay, so if you had to just guess who he's traded for, then who would be your best guess as to what we would be getting back?
My best guess is it's not something creative like we all want, like a 3-team trade or whatever. So if that's the case, the thing that always makes the most sense in my mind is Philly, either for Tobias Harris or for Ben Simmons.
I just feel like we wouldn't I feel like Tobias Harris, we wouldn't be like, I don't know. I feel like we'd maybe just be like, that's not good enough for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. I just feel like I said, I'm not too confident that we could be like, oh, well, if Ben Simmons goes to this team and these assets go here and then this person goes here and then we somehow end up on Siakam or something. I just feel like those kind of trades are, I mean, I would love for that to happen. That would be my number one wish, obviously. I'm right there with you with all the Siakam talk. I think he would be perfect, a really good fit on this team. But I just don't think it's going to be that complicated. I think for the most part, Neil's trades have been pretty just trade with one team back and forth and stuff like that. So that's why I think Philadelphia makes the most sense, because they feel like they could use CJ the most out of any teams that are somewhat good and that have a comparable player, even if Tobias doesn't make a lot of sense. I just feel like that's the one team that has two possibilities and trades straight up and could maybe make something work there.
Yeah, so you would if you had to guess, if we end up trading CJ, your best guess would be we get Ben Simmons back?
Probably. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm, as much as I hate to say it, I'm right there with you. God, I would love for Olshey to get creative, though, because that's the thing. I can't tell if it's just like he likes doing deals straight up, or if it's just there's been no incentive or reason to kind of get creative with things.
Yeah.
I would still love to find I would just rather have Siakam than Simmons. I mean, and I've proposed the CJ to Philly, Simmons to Toronto, Siakam to Portland thing.
Yep.
In the mock offseason, I traded CJ to New York. New York traded picks to Toronto, and Toronto traded Siakam to me. That was Portland. I mean, maybe there's something else out there. Maybe CJ to New Orleans. They, and they trade the 10th pick to Toronto, and we trade a pick or two to Toronto. And we take back, I don't know, maybe we trade Derrick Jones Jr. out in it, Derrick Jones Jr. and CJ, and we get back Steven Adams from the Pelicans to help make that work. And he's our backup center, and then we get back Siakam as well. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. There's a number of different routes he can try to be creative. So I'm hoping he tries to get creative. I think it would be now or never for him to try and get creative.
Yeah, see, the only other team to me that makes sense in terms of wanting CJ badly enough and a situation where it makes sense for us. Like, because New York would probably, I mean, there's rumors that they want CJ or whatever. It's just, as much as I like some of their assets, it doesn't make sense for us. But we could, in theory, trade CJ to New York for Emmanuel Quickly and a bunch of picks or whatever and have like a super cool second unit or whatever, but that doesn't, and re-sign Norm and be our starting two and all that kind of stuff. We could probably make that work and create like a huge trade exception and then use that to acquire a couple of pieces to fit like a small forward or something in the starting lineup. But yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense for a lot of those other teams that would give us back picks or young players as much as I think those kind of trades would be cool. It doesn't really make sense with what Dame needs to have this roster better. So the one other team that I think really needs a lead guard that has really good players is Boston. Now that they traded Kemba, they don't really have a true point guard or whatever on that team. The problem is I don't see them trading. Obviously, they're not going to trade Tatum, but I don't see them trading Brown in a CJ trade. So you're looking at Smart and other pieces and assets, maybe picks, stuff like that. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's like the one landing spot where if you could get him there and then send like Al Horford and a bunch of picks to a rebuilding team, and then like kind of make those pieces work around that and somehow end up with like Smart and a Siakam or something out of trading CJ and Derek Jones, or that would be a really cool way around all that kind of stuff. But those are the two teams in my mind that could really use a CJ McCollum on their roster. So I wouldn't be surprised if either of those two teams tried to make something happen. I just don't know how to make it happen to where we really get that much better.
Yeah. I would love Jaylen Brown if that was possible. You'd have to give up Rocco in that trade and picks. Because, I feel like the only way we could get Jaylen Brown is if we offer, like, CJ and Rocco to Boston, and then we offer a couple first-round picks to, like, Indiana, and they trade Boston Miles Turner or something like that. Yeah. So Boston would essentially turn Jaylen Brown into CJ McCollum, Robert Covington, and Miles Turner. Mm-hmm. And then had McCollum, Smart, Tatum, Rocco, and Turner, which I think is an interesting lineup. Like, that's the only way I see it's possible. Like, Jaylen Brown has to be on the table, though. And Brad Stevens kind of, I mean, the Kemba and a pick for Horford trade, it's not like he got the best value back in that trade whatsoever. And that was a bit of a surprising trade. So, I mean, it depends on how Brad Stevens feels about Jaylen Brown. If Brad Stevens is like, I wasn't a big fan of coaching Jaylen Brown, he might be gettable. And if you can give him 3 legit starters, 2 of which are, like, top defenders in the NBA, and one is basically a guy who can potentially play point guard, especially when you have a guy like Tatum next to him who can, McCollum doesn't have to do everything facilitation-wise and whatnot. Like, maybe that's the case. And if you're Portland, I think you would have to do that. Would you do CJ, Rocco, and 2 firsts for Jaylen Brown?
Oh, man, that's a lot. I probably would do that. I would hope we get back something else in that deal, like a wing or something. Even if it's like Nesmith or something, just like a secondary, some sort of asset we could either trade or have in another. But yeah.
Here's the thing about that, though. Instead of having our taxpayer mid-level exception, we'd have our full mid-level exception. We also be able to use our biannual exception. Mm. So we would be able to do more through free agency.
Yeah.
We'd still have Derek Jones Jr. as a trade piece. I mean, we'd need a starting 4 there in that situation, though. So maybe it's mid-level exception for an Otto Porter Jr., and then you use the biannual exception. I don't know who you'd use it for, but yeah, I mean, like, you'd have some avenues. Like, you just need Jaylen Brown's a better defender than CJ, a better offensive player at this point than CJ, a lot younger than CJ, on a little better contract. Like, I mean, I feel like Dame would have to be happy with that. I don't know. It's just hard to think of guys, and I've thought this through as I've ran the Blazers in the mock offseason. It's like, it's hard to come up with a lot of realistic options. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like everything you can come up with is a little bit of a pipe dream. But if you have enough pipe dreams, I mean, maybe one will come true. You know what I mean? Like, it's just tough.
Sure, been a couple of people are asking about Gordon Hayward, but see, this is my problem. Like, the Hornets, I know Devontae Graham is a free agent, but they have LaMelo Ball. They have, you'd think they bring
Terry Rozier,
Devontae Graham back. They already have Terry Rozier. Yeah. CJ doesn't make sense for that team. So that's why I'm talking about, like, teams that make sense for CJ. So I've always said this. I think you've been on the same page that if we trade CJ, even if you have to attach assets to CJ, you have to bring in someone better, right?
Yeah.
Like a better. But I've been softening on that stance slightly. And there's 3 players. One of them is on Boston, who I've already mentioned, and that's Smart. But if you could somehow get Smart and Ingles and maybe Thad Young. So none of those guys are stars, but they're all 3 really good players. And you'd have to have a lot of moving pieces in this deal, right? But if you could somehow get like those 3 guys for CJ and Derek Jones, the salary's pretty much even there. That's one of those things where like maybe the pieces outweigh the star potential or whatever. But it would give us a lot of depth and stuff like that, and we'd have a playmaking 4 in Thaddeus Young. We'd have a playmaking 3 in Ingles, and we'd have a good defensive guard in our rotation with Norm and Dame and Simons or whatever. So I really like how those 3 pieces would mix on our team. But other than that, I really want a star. But if we did that trade for Rocco, CJ, and 2 firsts for Jaylen Brown,
Yeah.
I think we'd have to find a way with that trade exception it would create, or if one of those teams sends assets to like a Chicago or a Utah, and we got either Ingles or Thaddeus Young, or if Boston just gave us Smart in that deal. If we got one of those 3 players with Jaylen Brown, that would be a home run in my opinion.
Yeah, I just don't think it's possible.
Right.
I mean, Blazer fans sleep on Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
Okay? Jaylen Brown is 24 years old. Last season, he averaged 25 points per game, 6 rebounds, 3.5 assists per game. He shot 48% from the field and 40% from 3. Well, and he's 6'6". Like, he has the size to be our small forward. Isn't that what everybody has wanted? Like, he's like the exact prototypical guy that I feel like Blazer fans have wanted to trade CJ for forever. But it's like, when you start talking about CJ, Rocco, and 2 firsts for him, like, it's all of a sudden that's too much. I don't understand it. Like, he would be easier to get if he was like 30 years old, 31 years old. He's 24. He's also one of the highest character guys in the league. So he fits in that regard. Like, I don't get why fans wouldn't want him. Like, sure, maybe you're giving up a lot, but it's like we're in a position where it's like we got to do something. And he would be a good enough second star to help us win a championship. If you had Dame, Jaylen Brown, Norm, and Nurkic, and it's like, sure, we lose Rocco, but it's like you would gain the ability to potentially bring in a player via sign and trade, because that's the thing is we shed salary in that deal. We shed salary. Maybe we take back another player, but it's like, since we lose salary, it opens up more space below the hard cap to potentially use the former level exception, potentially use the biannual exception, potentially, use Derek Jones Jr. and try and sign in trade for a player that we signed, $12 million. It would give us options out of that, all while being able to re-sign Norm for about $20 million a year, maybe a little bit more. Maybe you overpay him to bring him back. So that's the thing is like we gain flexibility with that trade as well, which cannot be understated. So like the fact that some fans balk at that idea is crazy to me.
Yeah, and so for all the reasons you mentioned, that's why I think Boston wouldn't trade. Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely love Jaylen Brown. I think if we had a chance to get him for CJ and assets, you absolutely pull the trigger. That's one of those where pretty much everyone is on the table other than Dame and maybe Nurk, in my opinion, in that deal. Maybe you could mix some so you don't have to give up picks, or maybe you could keep Rocco and add some other parts to it. So yeah, there's definitely some ways around that. I find it hard to believe that they would trade Brown. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely asked him. I mean, the worst that could happen is, they hang up the phone or whatever. But obviously, like I said, they're a team that needs CJ. So I would definitely call them and see what they want.
Okay. Yeah, if I'm Dame, I would be trying to get in Jeremy Grant's ear right now and I feel like Detroit would be like, oh, if Jeremy Grant wanted to be traded to Portland, they would abide by his wishes and not ask for too much because he signed there for $20 million a year, even though Denver was offering him $20 million a year. It seems like they have a really good relationship, him and Detroit. So if like Dame's like, we want to give you kind of a similar role that you have in Detroit, but on a team that is trying to contend, maybe Jeremy Grant's willing to do so. Of course, Jeremy Grant and Dame are on the Olympic team together, so Dame should be recruiting Jeremy Grant, because that's a guy that's potentially gettable without trading CJ. And then you can talk about trading CJ for something else. If you're talking Derrick Jones Jr. option to his player option, Derrick Jones Jr., Robert Covington to a third team for a couple picks, then maybe you add in a first of your own for Jeremy Grant. I mean, that would be impressive to Dame. And then you still have CJ to trade. Because that's the thing is, like, Jeremy Grant he's not on a max contract. He's only making $20 million. So, I don't know. Like, that needs to happen. I also think Olshey right now should be canvassing the entire league to see who would give up the best package in terms of rebuilding assets for CJ McCollum and then try and spin those assets into a Siakam.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's New Orleans is willing to give up the 10th pick and something else, and, you know, maybe they really want to add a third guy to Ingram and Zion. You know, I don't think CJ's the best target for them, but maybe they really want him. You got to try and find the team that will give up the best package of rebuilding assets for CJ, and then you got to try and spin him into a Siakam or something like that. And then if not, then you fall back on, like, okay, CJ for Tobias Harris or CJ for Ben Simmons. That's how it should be structured heading into the offseason.
Yep, I completely agree, and I hope these are the kind of deals we're talking about here in a couple weeks. It'd be awesome if those were the kind of ones on the table.
I'm so nervous.
Yeah.
I'm so like, dude, it's like, it feels like it's forever away, but it also is like, oh my goodness, it's like only, 10 days from now?
Mm-hmm. So here's something interesting. If you traded CJ for Quickly and 3 first-round picks, right? Created a trade exception. And then you flip those picks to Detroit. I don't know if it'd be all those picks or like 3 firsts or whatever. I don't know what it would take to get them. But we'd have a trade exception big enough to take on Jeremy Grant's contract. So if you were talking about getting like Quickly and Grant for CJ, that becomes quite interesting in my mind, because I think Quickly and Simons in our second unit would be a pretty fun second unit backcourt or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just
how much would you want Norm playing the 3 there?
I mean, Norm can play the 3 a little bit. I've never minded Norm playing the 3.
Yeah, I just feel like there's not enough minutes to go around for those guys.
As Will Gibson also points out, they have a guy by the name of Mason Plumlee, who is also, I feel like, a good backup for us.
Yeah.
Which I think I'd have to do the math, but it's really close to possibly Plumlee and Grant fitting into that trade exception. Or we could make it a 3-team trade, and do it. So if you could get Plumlee as your backup center, and he kind of fits as a good backup to Nurk because he does some of the same things playmaking-wise, is actually a little better dribbling the ball up the court than Nurk is. So you could run the similar offense with the second unit and have a bunch of young, exciting players, and then you have Jeremy Grant in the first unit. You get to keep Rocco. You get to re-sign Norm. I really like being creative like that, but unfortunately, like I said, I just feel like if he traded CJ to New York straight up and got those, even if he had a plan down the road, he would get so killed for that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I just don't think New York. I don't think New York includes Quickly in anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be like Toppin or whatever. Like that would be fun too. Toppin and 3 firsts. Or you might even get another first out of that. Because, I mean, Drew Holiday got 2 bad contracts and 3, it was 3 firsts and
then
like 2 or 3 pick swaps or something.
Yeah.
And the Knicks have 19 and 21, so those picks are easily tradable by them without really messing anything up. Their future-wise of picks, and they also have the Dallas pick in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So they could include those 3 picks, and they don't really lose any future assets and add CJ to their team, I really like that kind of thing. Or maybe even just send Toppin and those 3 picks straight to, or maybe we even keep maybe we get to keep 21 and send Toppin and 19 and the 2023 Dallas pick for Jeremy Grant and Plumlee or something in that deal.
I would almost want to use trade 21, 2022 first, and maybe, I don't know, maybe a 2025 first for Jeremy Grant and Mason Plumlee down the line, and keep 19 and draft somebody with it. That would be fun. I mean, this is a loaded draft. You could get somebody ready to contribute.
See, in my mind, the way I operate, I would love that, but then, building around Dame, using CJ to get young players and draft picks would be insane.
I mean, you use 19 and 21 and trade up and take, I don't know, Duarte. Anyway, no, that's not a good idea. But I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Dame needs to be in Jeremy Grant's ear, because that's a guy we could get that could be a good fit, and who would, if Jeremy Grant wanted to be traded here and Detroit wanted to get value back for him, they would abide by Jeremy Grant's wishes, in my opinion. So it's if you could get Jeremy Grant and then a Mason Plumlee out of that, I mean, and then, yeah, I don't know. If you could get Jeremy Grant and Mason Plumlee straight up for CJ and maybe get back, I don't know. That's interesting. That's an interesting sort of way to structure it. Because that's the thing. We do need to address the backup 4 and 5, and Mason Plumlee would be a great backup 5 for us. So
then you could go out and use the Tax MLE and maybe get Otto Porter, and that's your backup 4.
Yeah. Or a Batum, maybe.
Yeah.
I almost feel like, we wouldn't necessarily need another playmaking big if you have 2 playmaking centers.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, so
you could try, because if you only gave up the assets you got in the CJ trade for Grant and Plumlee, then you could still have all your future picks. So you could trade a Derek Jones and a future first or something, and bring back a Thad Young as your backup 4 or whatever.
Do you think, how many seconds would we have to attach to Derek Jones Jr. to trade him straight up for Plumlee? Do you think?
I don't know. See, that one's really tough, because in my opinion, he's not quite worth a first, but he's more valuable than a couple seconds. So I don't know if there's if that's the right mix. They probably ask for a young player or something in that deal, and I don't think it becomes worth it then.
Yeah, it's not.
So yeah, maybe a heavily protected first that becomes 2 seconds or something. But I don't know if they would do that for just DJ and seconds, unless if they traded Grant, maybe they're just going to go full young like they should have done last offseason. But I don't know.
This is why I'm praying that Derek Jones Jr. opts in.
Yep.
We want him to opt in.
Yeah.
A lot of people want him to opt out. It's just no. Why would you want him to opt out? We can't trade him then. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm at a loss. It's some off seasons, it's easy to think of ideas heading in. This off season is just a headache, man. Because trust me, I've tried. I've tried. It gets to the point where I'm just starting to get a little bit insane with it. Maybe Memphis really wants a 2-guard next to John Morant, and they want CJ, and they're willing to move off of Jaren Jackson, and then he's our starting 4, and I don't know. When I was planning for my mock off season, I was having that thought. They have a logjam of bigs. They have Xavier Tillman, Brandon Clark, Valanciunas, and Jaren Jackson Jr. I don't know. It's tough. Because I want to bring Nurkic back. I think his value isn't as high as it should be on the trade market, and he'll hold a lot more value to us by us keeping him than he would serve us in a trade. So, I want to keep him. I would like to keep Rocco. I mean, every time I think about things, it just comes back to we got to get good rebuilding assets for CJ McCollum and send them to Toronto and get Pascal Siakam.
Yeah.
That's literally the only scenario I'm happy with that I feel like is somewhat realistic that I can come back to and say like, yeah, that could be possible. Like people are talking about Andrew Wiggins in the 7th pick from Golden State to Toronto for Siakam. Well, it's like, okay, hopefully New Orleans is willing to give up the 10th pick, and then we add a couple seconds on top of that. And at that point, maybe you throw in a Nasir Little. Like, you might have to overpay, in a lot of fans' opinions, for Siakam. But, like, you gotta do something at this point. And Siakam, how good do you think a starting lineup of Dame, Norm, Rocco, Siakam, and Nurkic would be?
I think that would be, well, I guess it depends on health of some teams, but like 2nd or 3rd seed, in my opinion, probably.
I mean, I think that could be top 10 on both sides of the floor.
The only thing I'm worried about is Siakam's injury leading Olshey to shy away from trading for him, since he's going to miss the first 2 months, I think, of the season. I mean, I know, like, you and I wouldn't necessarily not include him because of that, but I could definitely see them not wanting to take that risk. Or this is another reason for holding on to CJ if Siakam doesn't get traded, is to, benefit from having CJ increasing his trade value a little bit and then using him to make the trade.
Yeah, it's just like, I feel like Siakam will be worth more at the deadline next year than he would be this offseason with his injury. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to give up a little bit more. And it's like, you're taking a risk there. So if you can do it now, you should do it now. But here's the thing, Eric. Like, sure, like, Siakam is hurt and misses a month and a half. But this is where I have confidence that, okay, we got Damian Lillard. We got Yusuf Nurkic. You got Norm Powell. We have Chauncey Billups as our head coach instead of Terry Stotts. I think we could still easily be a winning team without Siakam. Then you add Siakam to a team that's been able to win, and you get even better. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm cool with trading for him with him missing two months. Final question I got for you: if Kawhi wants to leave the Clippers, how likely is it that we can be considered by him? Not necessarily but at least be in consideration for him.
The only things we have going for us are, one, we're on the West Coast, and two, we have Chauncey Billups.
3, we have Damian Lillard.
3, we have Dame.
4, maybe he likes Roy Rogers.
I don't know. Kawhi's such a weird guy. It's hard to know any of those things. Like, yeah. He's like the hardest player to figure out ever. But,
I mean, if you could sign and trade CJ for him, you do it in a heartbeat, even if he misses all year next year, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, as of right now, not knowing, I would say it's like less than 1%. There's a slight chance, but maybe. But if you told me he was done in LA, he wanted out, he was definitely going to play for a different team or want to sign with another team, I'd maybe put it at, let's say, 12%.
Yeah.
Not horrible, but not likely either. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
that would be amazing. That would be so cool. And I mean, I think we'd be fine most of the season. We were fine for 25 games
Nas
without
can
CJ
step up and be
year.
most improved player. I would start Nas in that situation.
Yeah, and we can sign, use our mid-level on like an Otto Porter Jr., like you said. Someone to balance out or to provide some depth in that position for a while. So yeah, I think we'd be fine. It would worry me a little bit that he hasn't had the greatest history of coming back from injuries and, been kind of at odds with medical staffs, and then combine that with our current medical staff. A lot of that stuff would would concern me, but I would definitely put that into consideration, and I think he would at least pick up the phone if we called in that scenario, which is more than I could have said a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever.
Yep. Kyle Wilson, that trade doesn't work. Here's the thing. If we sign a trade for Kawhi, our salary can't go above $143 million next season. So getting back, trading out CJ and Nas and getting back Kawhi in a sign trade, also getting back Marcus Smart. it doesn't match salary because Kawhi is going to be paid like $40 million, then Marcus Smart's $13 million. That's like $53 million. We're only trading out about $33 million there, so it doesn't match in the trade itself. But then also we'll be hard capped, and there's no way we resign Norman Powell if we do that trade because of the hard cap. So it would just be a straight up thing. Like, I mean, this is just obviously the pipe dream of all pipe dreams. Like, this obviously is insanely unlikely, but
that would have to be it then. I mean, you'd have to get a trade that was so good that you could let Norm walk because you already had all those positions covered or whatever. I guess Smart kind of covers that, but I don't think that's as good as just keeping all those other picks and like Nas and Ant and just trading Kawhi for CJ basically straight up, or adding DJ to that, because the Clippers would be in a situation where he could sign with New York and he could just say, hey, look, either do this trade with them or I'm signing with New York and you're getting nothing. So yeah.
So final question, since we're on the topic, where's Kawhi going in our mock off season?
As of right now, Kawhi is leaning towards a return to the Clippers, but it has not been decided yet.
Well, hopefully it's decided. Go ahead, yeah. Hopefully it's decided soon. Eric's tending to some business. We're about to wrap things up. Our next stream will be after the finals are done, so we'll like recap that for a final time. Then the next stream after that, we can like go even more in depth with off-season ideas and whatnot, because we'll have like a week to think about that before the draft and whatnot. We will go live with any trades. Did the Rocco trade happen before the draft last year?
It did. Yeah, it was Monday, and then the draft was Wednesday, and then free agency was Friday.
Yeah, so like the draft is the 29th, so like I mean we could have something happen a week from now on the 26th, 27th. So but yeah.
I don't know how to tag Jackson in chat with his little hashtag in front of his name.
Mock Grizz Jackson.
Jackson, I still haven't gotten an email for you for any free agents, so if you have been emailing, I have not gotten anything from you.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that kind of have disappeared. It's gonna affect, it might affect who comes back at the mock off season next year. I don't know. I think the 4th of July, I don't know. It was almost like it really just all of a sudden kind of died off recently. So I don't know. We'll try and wrap things up. I've been waiting on Kawhi personally.
Yeah.
So
yep.
Anyway,
you have a couple of decisions to make as well.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the Kawhi domino to fall. So hopefully, I don't know. I'm cool with him. I'm just going after him. I think the Blazers need to go after him. You gotta swing for that home run. So, but I already did my job. I already traded for Siakam, so I am good.
Yeah, hey. Kawhi, Siakam, Jaylen Brown. Those are all guys you have to at least inquire about. Try to get a meeting. Try to get a phone call with the GM. Try to do that. Yeah, you definitely have to call on those guys.
Yep. Anything left that you want to touch on before we sign off?
No, just looking forward to a great finals ending. Hopefully the games are good and there's not a blowout and it doesn't end with a kind of a boring game. But I really appreciate everyone for tuning in, and thank you for supporting the channel. And we'll catch you guys on Thursday.
Yep, got a couple more videos planned this week. I said I was going to get an upload streak going. Was going to upload a second video today. But Eric should be... when's your video dropping? Do you have an idea?
I just have to edit it. I've had no time of the streams to do stuff. So I will be... I kind of filmed it in a way that should be not too difficult to edit, and then I'll get it to you for graphics, and then,
Yeah, so I want to put off-season plans out, but I want that Eric video to drop before I start talking about, off-season plans and whatnot, so we can kind of set the table for how things would work, kind of salary-wise for a lot of our guys, and it'll kind of set the table for those videos. So that's why I didn't drop the second video that I said I was going to drop today, because it's an off-season plan. I want to wait until... we can get that video out to set the table. So as the appetizer or whatever you want to call it, but it'll be more than an appetizer. It's literally a full in-depth breakdown as to our roster position, salary position heading into the offseason. He dropped one last year, so yeah. Gonna ramp up the videos here though. Hopefully you enjoyed the mock draft and a couple of the shocker picks I had to throw in there to keep you guys on your toes, to keep you guys entertained. So, I got some dislikes for that and some hate for that, but wanted to make it fun and entertaining, and I'm a Kai Jones fan, and I like Quentin Grimes as well. So if you haven't watched that mock draft that I uploaded earlier this morning, maybe you missed it because you're not used to me scheduling an upload to upload at 9 a.m. in the morning. I scheduled that one, so if you haven't seen it, make sure to go check it out.
I was like, there's no way Tori actually just posted this video. He definitely scheduled that.
Oh yeah. I think that might be the first time I scheduled a video. So yeah, might start scheduling videos. Honestly, 5 p.m. I feel like is a great time to upload videos. So I'm gonna start trying to upload some videos at 5 p.m. So definitely be ready around that time. 5 p.m. Pacific time. We'll change up some upload times and dates and whatnot. But yeah, definitely gonna get the videos rolling for you guys. Anything else?
No, man, it's been a fun stream. Thanks to everyone for the questions and everyone for participating.
Yep. Sorry if you had questions we didn't answer. I didn't expect us to like have so much to talk about tonight, but you know, we get on tangents and whatnot. So yeah, we will have off-season streams where we just dedicate to talking about off-season ideas and hearing your thoughts about them as well. And we dropped the mailbags and whatnot. Now I'll have one more mailbag before the NBA draft for you guys if your guys' questions have not been answered. So like Kyle Wilson apparently didn't watch my last mailbag, man. Wait, no, he did watch my last mailbag because he just asked in chat. He said, who would you want Portland to target if they trade into the draft this year? I had a question like that on my mailbag, and I said, that's a video, okay? That's an upcoming video. I will talk about that. And I said that in the mailbag, Kyle, but apparently he forgot or didn't see it, man. That's the thing. It's like a lot of times I'll like drop a mailbag, and then it's like the next day on Twitter, and if I stream, I'll get like people asking the same exact questions in the mailbag. Just go watch the mailbag. Just go watch the mailbag. And if I don't answer your question, then feel free to ask me. It's just like, yeah. So Kyle says I skimmed it. So go look at that mailbag. I had the answer to that question. I should just say go watch the last mailbag to all questions like that. Maybe I'll start doing that. I don't know. But anyway, I appreciate your guys' support on that in the videos and the streams lately. We will be live again on Thursday to talk about whoever wins the NBA Finals, because if the Suns win Game 6, Game 7 will be Thursday right before we go live, so that could be a post-game show, essentially, after the NBA Finals conclude. So, looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's going to work out, but I had a lot of fun on that stream where we went back and forth between picks in the draft last year. We did like a mock draft, but it was just like you and I alternating picks. Maybe if we have time on Monday or something, that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, because the draft is on a Thursday.
It's on next Thursday, right?
Well, I wanted to do a pre-draft stream on Wednesday next week.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I felt like that would be cool, and we could maybe do that then. Do you want to do a pre-draft stream on Wednesday, the night before the draft?
Yeah, I think I'd be down.
Yeah, so let's do that then. Remind me going into that, because I will like create a graphic space for that and whatnot. Yeah, so stream this Thursday, recapping the finals. Next Monday, we will just talk about Blazers offseason ideas. Wednesday, we'll preview the draft. And then the night before free agency starts, I want to do a stream. I think that's like Saturday or something. I don't exactly remember. Just do a free agency preview. And then, we'll have our draft stream and our free agency stream. So lots of streaming in the next couple of weeks as we cover the offseason.
Mm-hmm. And the draft and the free agency streams will be over on the regular Blazers Uprise show.
Like usual. Third draft stream, third free agency stream ever. So looking forward to that. Anyway, Zach, I'm going to give you a 5-minute ban for that one, you troll. That's a wrap for this video. Or not this video. I just said video. See, I've been recording videos lately. My goodness. That's a wrap for the stream. We'll be live again on Thursday. I expect 1 or 2 videos before then. Hopefully you enjoy those. So until we catch you next time, have a good rest of your night. As always, peace out. Go Blazers.